I don't think I've processed how much I'll actually regret making this video until I've finished reading all the books. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today's vlog, we are continuing to push myself outside of my reading comfort zone by reading Goodreads' most popular horror books. So if you don't know, Goodreads recently released a list of the 60 most popular horror books in the past 5 years. So these are books that were published from 2017 to 2022, and popularity, as it says on their website, is measured by total shelvings, books that appear on readers' read and want to read shelves, and overall star ratings. So if I seem dramatic, it's because I am. If you don't know me in real life, which a lot of you probably don't, I am a very proud scaredy cat. I hate all things horror. I have not read a horror book since Goosebumps in middle grade, and I avoid them like the plague because I get nightmares really easily. I mean, I just recently stopped sleeping with a nightlight, and I am that one friend that watches horror movies with you from in between my eye holes, my finger holes, and underneath the cover of a blanket. So long story short, I just don't read horror, and you're probably asking yourself, Alex, like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, why are you torturing yourself, or why are you inducing yourself to be scared? And that's because I don't really know exactly what I'm missing. I can't say that I've read like an actual adult horror book, and this list, the Goodreads 60 books list, is adult horror. So I feel like I'm missing out on something, and I feel like I'm not gonna be able to experience that until I read the books myself. So that's what we're doing in this video. Also, I am a huge mood reader, so my tastes change based on like the season, based on how I'm feeling, and this fall season in particular, I've been feeling, I mean, I graduated college, so I've been feeling really free to be able to do some like fall activities. Like, I was doing so many fall activities, like literally in late September into early October. I have so many things planned, and I'm just feeling like overall like very comfortable in this very gray weather, even though I'm a very sunny person. So it's giving me the feeling that I do want to read some horror books, or at least explore some adult horror. And from my understanding of like the adult horror genre, a lot of it is less like ghosts and vampires and zombies, although there are books that fall into that category, but they're more like real life things that could be like scary, if that makes any sense. So like serial killers and other things like that are really scary in terms of like horror genre. Again, I don't know much about it, so I sound like a total idiot right now talking about it, but I'm really hoping to learn more through filming this video about the horror genre and about the books that I'm going to be reading. And any horror buffs or horror book genre people in the comments, let me know what I'm missing out on. Let me know what books that you recommend. But so far, I'm going to be using this list to kind of guide me through reading horror for the first time. Okay, so I have a few books for this vlog. I feel like I'm gonna read more than one, of course, to get like a good overall well-rounded taste. But the first book that I'm planning to read, because I mainly wanted to film this video for this book, and it just so happened to be on the Goodreads 60 list, but it is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This book, it has been on my shelf for so long. I actually purchased this hardcover copy that was so expensive because it's huge. And what's funny is that I never read it. I think I bought it because I was in the mood to read something like this. I bought it like, I think 2 falls ago, or like maybe 3 even. But I never really got to it. So now that it's on the Goodreads 60, I'm really excited to read it. It's a huge book. My partner has read it, and my partner has told me that there are creepy things in there, and they are like creepy crawly sort of things. There's bugs and insects, and I really don't like bugs and insects. Like, that to me is horror. That is scary. So again, we'll see if I like this. He has been singing his praises about this book, so I'm really excited to jump into it. Okay, and this video isn't sponsored or anything, but I have been obsessed with the Libby app. If you don't know, Libby is like an e-book library app. I think it used to be called Overdrive, and now it's like being moved over, but I've been obsessed with it. I actually just recently got a library card. I wasn't usually a library person. Like, I would love to support them, but I just love having like physical copies of books because my concentration, I can't read ebooks and listen to audiobooks, but recently it has become a little bit better where I can focus, like very little, looking at screens all day. So I just got started on the Libby app, and I have 7 7 books on hold, but as you can see, I have many titles from the Goodreads top 60. I got The Year of the Witching, Mexican Gothic, If It Bleeds by Stephen King, Bunny by Mona Awad. So I have a lot of books on here and they are like weeks out in hold. So I'm just gonna see whichever one comes off hold first, and then I will use that to instruct what books I read for this vlog. But also, side note, I did what's it called, loan a copy of the Final Girls support group, and I actually read 70 pages, but it was making me really anxious, so I had to stop reading it. So like, disclaimer for these videos, if something is a little bit too much outside of my comfort zone to the point where I'm getting like anxious or just not feeling it, I will stop. I will not force myself to read something that I know I'm not like capable of like processing. So this book was just a little much for me. I feel like it was just super intense and my anxiety was like, I was sweating while reading this book. So unfortunately I returned the book, but I just wanted to put that out there because I thought it would be interesting. But that was also on the Goodreads top 60. So yeah, I'm just gonna start with Plain Bad Heroines, and I'll check in with you throughout the month. I believe this video will probably be going on for quite a while since I'm waiting like 4 weeks out. Apparently you don't really have to wait that long. Like, you place it on hold, but like the holds come faster than like what it says, because like If It Bleeds is on hold for like 9 weeks out, and it's like usually not that long. So we'll see. I don't know, maybe I'll end up buying copies if these don't come off hold before the end of the month, but I will update you on all the spooky business later when I start reading. And I finally was just able to start Plain Bad Heroines, so I'm actually on page 100. And I actually did something spooky, Halloween-y today. I watched a scary movie. Well, I wouldn't really call it scary, but it's like a Halloween movie. I watched The Corpse Bride, which is like, I guess, a children's movie. But that's about as much as I can tolerate when it comes to spooky and creepy. Yeah, but I read a little bit of Plain Bad Heroines, and one thing that I have to say about this book is that it is unlike any book I've ever read before. That is definitely not something I say lightly, especially because I feel like I try to go out of my way to read books that are kind of like unique in format, but this book just breaks it's like more unlike any book I've ever read in my entire life. It includes like a multitude of things. Like, it includes footnotes, which I have to do some investigative research on that. And I'm still waiting to read a little bit more to kind of like understand why the footnotes are there and how they are important to the story. There's illustrations that are absolutely beautiful. I will show some of them, but some of them have like captions that might spoil it, so I'll just like show the smaller ones. But there are like full page illustrations. What else? There's like text messages, like kind of like multimedia mix of things. Super interesting. The voice of the book, the narration, is so interesting. Like, it's an unnamed narrator who is retelling the story, and the narrator is so like quirky and like humorous and like no nonsense. Like, I have to do some more reading obviously to get to know the narrator a little bit more, but I love how the narrator, this like omniscient viewer, is that what it's called, has like their own personality. In terms of horror factor, it's not that scary. I don't know what I was expecting. I think because I'm so used to just like our traditional understanding of horror, as in like horror movies, like things that I cannot tolerate, that I expected this book to be like jump scares, but it's just not the same, especially with like movies being more visual. And I think when you read horror books, or when you read any books, it's really limited to your imagination, to how you interpret the words on the page you read. So I feel like I'm just like choosing not to interpret them in a scary way, if that makes any sense. I will say though, I don't think it's scary, I think it's sinister. I think this book has a very sinister feeling to it, which does make me uncomfortable, but like, it's not scary, if that makes sense, like that I can't read it. So yeah, there's a lot of different parts and aspects in this book that are just like some things like creeping up, or again, a content warning, this book has a lot of insects and bugs, especially yellow jackets, like deadly killing yellow jackets. So if you're a very squeamish person when it comes to like gore and bugs and insects and creepy crawly things that are like crawling on your skin and people don't know about it, maybe don't pick up this book. It's making me even a little comfortable, and I'm like, I can tolerate bees, but I just can't tolerate like spiders or like creepy crawly things. So that's pretty much the only horror part as of now. Yeah, I'm really enjoying this. I really want to keep this first update short, but these are just all my first impressions. Another thing is I actually have a Goodreads, and on Goodreads I post my daily updates and like if I'm starting a new book. So if you want to follow my reading updates in real time, be sure to follow my Goodreads. I'll leave it in the description as always. But yeah, I'm gonna keep reading and update you guys when I'm way much further into this book. This look right now is giving serious Lord Farquaad vibes. Hello everyone, so I have finally finished Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth, and it has been a journey. It has been quite the journey finishing this book. I mean, it is 600 pages. It has been a while since I have completed a 600-page book, and I forgot how exhausting it is. It literally just takes life out of you because, like, it's kind of like running a marathon. You get to certain points in the book where you're just like so tired that to the point where you're like, oh, I really want to finish, or I just really want to give up, but like you can't because you want to know what happens. So this is kind of how I felt with this book. So if you didn't know, I'm gonna put this book down because it's quite heavy. So if you didn't know, Plain Bad Heroines follows a story revolving around this New England boarding school, and it takes place in the past and the present. We see this storyline from the past where the past like owners and the people, the students who went to the school, you see their relationships and you see how this curse, you know, begins. And then we transfer to the present where we have a storyline which is after the boarding school closes and these horror film directors are trying to make a movie about the hauntings of Brookhaunts. That's what the school is called. Brookhaunts? Brookhaunts, and then it follows the but it follows 3 girls who are entangled in this movie. So that's kind of the gist of it. There's a lot of other things going around, but I will say that there were so many things about this book that we could talk about, and I will probably do a more in-depth, you know, review on my wrap-up at the end of the month. And I don't want this whole video to be a review because it is just me like reading horror books, but I really enjoyed Plain Bad Heroines. I don't read my books anymore, but I would definitely give it somewhere beyond like just like an average review. I think it was good in so many aspects. It's such a unique storytelling. Our narrator in this book is not really ever named, and I don't think it's someone that we've met in the characters before, but it kind of breaks the fourth wall. So the narrator addresses the reader, the audience, very directly, and it's kind of really cool to see. There are footnotes in this book that like add to it, but to be honest, I didn't really read all of them. I don't know, it's not because I didn't want to read them or wasn't curious. It was just some of them were just providing providing more information than I needed in order to finish the story. And again, I was very tired of reading, so I just felt like it was so many words on a page. There are also illustrations in this novel that didn't really add anything for me, but definitely were so beautiful and were just really eye-catching to look up, and definitely broke up the story from time to time. So it's weird because I think this is a story that a lot of people will like really love. Like I feel like for some people this is a book that is like a cult classic. They want to read it over. It's like watching like a series movie and like dissecting it again and watching it over and over again to dissect it for like details that you missed out on. I feel like this is that kind of book. But then on the other hand, there are probably those people who absolutely abhor this book and think it's too long and think it's dry and think it's too complicated and doesn't make any sense for the sake of like what the story is about. It is wonderfully sapphic, wonderfully queer, just a queer kind of a little bit joyful. Obviously, there are some parts that are like very creepy and very weird, but honestly, like, yeah, it's pretty intense and like in the sapphic romances in this book, which I honestly really love because I don't feel like that's very common in horror. So I'm gonna rate all the books that I talk about in this video. I'm gonna rate them on a scale of spook factor, and for spook factor, I give this book a 5 out of 10. I wouldn't say it's what I thought I was getting myself into in the horror genre, but again, I don't know what I was really signing myself up for. It's definitely creepy, I'll give it that. It's unsettling, it's sinister, it's creepy, all of those synonyms, but I don't think it's like scary, if that makes any sense. There was definitely a time, this previous weekend, I was actually up in my partner's like cabin, in their family's cabin that's like in the middle of the woods, and they have like floor to ceiling windows, and it was so dark outside. And no joke, that night I actually couldn't sleep, and I had to like knock on my partner's door and be like, can I sleep with you please? Yeah, because that was just I was just really unsettled by what I had read. Definitely not a book you can read at night. I could not read this book at night. When I was reading this book, it was like on the grass, on the blanket, in the sunlight, in the bleaching hot sunlight, and it was by the window with the breeze, with the lights on. I could not read this book at night, and I don't think, you know, I could. No, I just don't think I could. There were also some parts, especially with the bugs. The bugs, guys, the bugs really get me. The bugs bug me, man. I am not good with bugs, with creepy crawly things, and there were so many creepy crawly things in this book that made me super uncomfortable. I wouldn't say scared, again, I would just say uncomfortable and unsettling, and made my skin kind of crawl. So definitely look out for that in this book, especially if you are a person who doesn't like bees or flying things coming at you, and you're that person that like screams and runs away. I don't think you'll enjoy this book. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed Plain Bad Heroines. I'm really glad that I read this book just because it's been on my TBR since 2020, so for 2 years now, and it was really a delight to read, and I'm excited to see what else the horror genre has in store for me. We just got back from going to an adorable little indie bookstore called the Paperback Exchange in Minneapolis. So if you live in Minnesota near the Twin Cities area, highly recommend you check it out. It's just this like super cute little bookstore, really tiny, but just with like shelves and shelves of paperbacks. Like literally all they sell is a bunch of paperbacks, like mass market paperbacks, backlist paperbacks, like any paperback you can think of, and they have just like such vast collections. So we saw like James Patterson and obviously Stephen King. And guys, I went into this bookstore not expecting to find anything. I just went in there because I love going into bookstores, but I am so happy because I found 2 of the books that I have been having on hold on the library, on the Libby app for this video, and it just so happened that they were there. So the first one, as you saw in the little clip, is Stephen King's The Outsider. This one I didn't originally reserve on the Libby app, but it is one of Goodreads' top 60 horror books, so I'm so excited to have this in my hands and to start reading it. And then after the Stephen King section, I wasn't thinking I was gonna find any other books on my list there, but I found Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno-Garcia, and I'm super excited about this one. This one was one I was waiting for, and it said it was gonna come in like 6 weeks. So I'm really excited that I got it, like, you know, I just have it in my hand now and a physical copy as well. So I think I'm going to start with Mexican Gothic just because I think I'm just pushing myself. Like I'm like holding back from the Stephen King book because I'm scared. I'll be real, I am scared of that book. So yeah, I'm gonna start with Mexican Gothic, but I just wanted to bring that up and to tell you guys because I thought it was just so cool and such a coincidence and made me super happy today. So I'm halfway through Mexican Gothic, and this book is actually going by so fast. I didn't imagine that it was actually this short, but the pacing is really nice. I've only been reading for like maybe less than an hour, and I'm halfway through, so I'm definitely gonna finish this tonight. But again, I'm not gonna read when it gets dark because this one is definitely a lot spookier. I think in terms of like things that scare me, this book it takes place in this place called High Place, and it's kind of like a spooky mansion that like doesn't use electricity, so everything is lit by candlelight, and it's just spooky and because it's dark, and apparently there are like things in the walls and like sounds. And the main character's cousin is married married to someone living there, and she's kind of going through something, and it's just like, I don't know what the whole mystery of it is yet. It kind of is a mystery, like wrapped into this like horror book, like of like spirits and paranormal activity, but I have a feeling that it's not the type of book that I definitely will be reading at night. In fact, I'm like already kind of scared of being home alone, just because this book is a lot about like an empty house, an empty big house, covered in like darkness, and there's sounds, and yeah, it's kind of, I would say it's spooky. I would say I would have nightmares after reading this, especially because the main character in this book like has nightmares. Like, we are constantly like going through her nightmares and like experiencing it as the reader. So yeah, I'll catch you up on how I sleep tonight, but so far it's going super well. It kind of has like other undertones other than just horror. There's definitely a lot of nuanced topics, like something that was brought up in here was eugenics, which I thought was interesting. Didn't really expect that in this book, but they've been having conversations about it, and yeah, I'm excited to read more. The writing is really nice. I really love her writing, and I've been wanting to read a Silvia Moreno-Garcia book, so I'm really glad that I'm starting with this one, especially as it's spooky. And one thing that really scares me is like wallpaper, like in horror books. It's oddly specific, but I don't know if you remember that scene in Stranger Things where like the monster comes through like the wallpaper. It's not a spoiler or anything, it's just something that happens, and this book has like a scene like that with like wallpaper, and that's just so scary to me. Like the warping of wallpaper, I don't know why, that image in my head just freaks me the fuck out, and I would like run to the hills if I ever saw that in real life. So yeah, that's how my life is going. I can definitely tell that this week that I've been reading horror books, I have just been on edge the entire week. Like, my roommate came home the other day, and I didn't know she had come home because I was in the shower, and I came out of the shower and I like screamed because she was just standing by the garbage. So I've been on edge, but it's been an interesting topic. I've been telling everyone that I've been reading horror this week, so if I'm a little like on edge and jumpy, that's the reason why. But I'll update you a little later tonight.
When it came to Mexican Gothic, it deals with a lot of eugenic stuff and racialized science that was popular for a big chunk of the 20th century, but I also was the patriarch of the book is called Howard Doyle, and the Howard is from Lovecraft. You know, that was his first name, so he's named after him.
Guys, we need to talk about this book. So I finished Mexican Gothic last night, and I've been sitting on it for a few hours now in order to compile my thoughts to be able to talk about it. So this review is going to be kind of non-spoilery, so don't worry about that. But to do a summary of the book, Mexican Gothic follows the perspective of this young socialite. She comes from a rich family, and in the beginning of the novel, we see a conversation between her and her father. They receive a really disturbing letter from her cousin, who is married to this other family and living in their like insane like kind of like mansion that is, and there's always, they hint to something being weird about this guy that she's married, and they think there's something wrong. So the father sends our main character and they send her to that mansion to look after her cousin, and she just, it goes downhill from there. Like, it's kind of like those things in horror movies where the person is like seeing something and they go after it. Like, this is one of those moments, and I was like, no, don't go there, there's something lurking, don't go to the mansion. Anyway, this book is just a work of genius, and honestly, I've been meaning to read something from Silvia moreno-garcia for the longest time already, and I'm so excited that this is my first introduction to this author in this like gothic horror novel. Definitely not what I expected from the horror genre when I, took this video idea in the beginning. I will say though, it is a little slow and very descriptive, kind of clunky at times, the writing, but I feel like the descriptions added to to the horror. I feel like most of the tension and the horror came from the house itself. Like the house itself is a character in this book, so it very much relies on the really detailed description to create this tension and to create this unsettling aspect. So I don't fault it at all for that. I actually quite enjoyed it, but again, it was kind of hard to read because it was so clunky and so descriptive and just very slowly paced, where I realized that this book took like only a few days, but it felt like we were in this house for like weeks. Something I like to do when I, finish reading a book, especially for a book that like I think is very profound and is very unique, is I like listening to author interviews with the author talking about their genius and talking about their like what they intended to pursue with this novel. And I think for this book, I mean, you can kind of see like remnants of it in the beginning and in the end, like about this like overall metaphor about what this like house stands for, but overall it is a novel about colonialism. So this book deals with eugenics, something that the antagonist in our story like truly believes in, and this is like his sole purpose in life, and he is using that as a means to like justify the terrible horrors, and that kind of manifests into these like real life horrors in this book, this kind of like paranormal like aspect. So this book definitely covers a lot about race, and it discusses the exploitation of women and BIPOC people by white people and colonialism and empire. Just so many metaphors that are really great and packed into this very like consumable and marketable book as like a Gothic horror novel, which I think is a great way to introduce this like topic to people, because I definitely know that I wasn't expecting it, but it was just a very delightful thing to read in this book. So yeah, overall this book just takes haunted house to like the next level. It was kind of disturbing in many ways, and just because I think in general, like when we think of eugenics, it is pretty disturbing. So this book kind of like took that to like a whole other level. It was just so scary. I gave this an 8 out of 10 on Spook Factor because not gonna lie, I'll put a little clip in, but I slept with the lights on yesterday. I slept with my like LED lights on because I mean the story is about like a house that is decaying and rotting, and I feel like being in my room, I was like, oh my god, I'm like seeing things in the walls. Yeah, and I slept at like 4 a.m. so that's great. I'm loving this. Anyway, I think the last book, I think I'm only gonna do one more book for this vlog because I've had enough of horror. It's been great so far. I really am enjoying, kind of reading outside of my comfort zone, but maybe I'm pushing it a little too far because I haven't been able to sleep lately. I've been sleeping so late, and again, I had to sleep with the lights on, so I'm definitely having some like recurring nightmares. Anyway, so the last book I've decided to pick up is The Outsider by Stephen King, and I'm already actually like more than like a little bit than a third of the way through, and it's very interesting. This is my first Stephen King book. I don't think I've illustrated that in this video. This is my first Stephen King book. But yeah, this is my first Stephen King novel, and I didn't really know what to expect, but overall I am not really enjoying it so far. Don't come for me, please, Stephen King fans. Don't come for me in the comments. Don't hate me. Maybe this just isn't like his best novel or his best work. I mean, it does have like a 3 on Goodreads, but I'm definitely like not enjoying it so far. This is definitely more mystery detective novel than horror at this point. Right now my spook factor is at like a 2, but again, I don't know if it's gonna come in the end because this was on the Goodreads top 60 horror list, so I feel like it is gonna get scary, but we'll see. But that's just an update for now. I hope to finish this tomorrow so I can wrap up this video and stop reading scary books because it's fucking with my brain, and I really need to just go back to some lighthearted rom-coms for a while after this video. But yeah. Okay, but seriously, I don't want to downplay the fact that I haven't been sleeping. It is true, I have been having some sleepless nights. I don't know if that's because of the horror books or insomnia or Netflix or a combination of all 3. But yeah, that's been happening. I'm super tired right now, so I'm gonna take a nap. Tonight I actually have a really cool event that I'm gonna get on camera because I think it'd be so fun to include in this spooky vlog. And I'm going to like a candle night Halloween music evening. I don't know if that's the title, but essentially there's an event here in the Twin Cities and they're playing Halloween music, like in whole orchestra and everything by candlelight. So it's gonna be really cool, it's gonna be really fun, and I just can't wait to hear some spooky music in the candlelight. among, you know, other people. And yeah, it's gonna be really fun. And then I'm gonna finish reading and hopefully be done with this, because I need my life back. Not me literally texting my partner to come over right now so that I don't have to be in this house alone, because I just can't. I can't right now. So I just finished The Outsider by Stephen King. It's been a wild few days. It's actually been really not funny, it's been more scary. It's been like really gloomy these past few days while I've been reading these horror books, so it's really not helping the atmosphere that I'm reading these books in, and it's making me just feel even worse. This is a book following, basically in the beginning we find out that there is this gruesome murder in this city, and basically they have evidence to convict a guy. This guy was the coach of the kid that was found murdered, but then they start, you know, revealing more evidence that, and like his alibi that don't really match up, and they start discovering some really weird things that they don't really have explanations for. And you know, the story progresses, and I'm not going to really go too much. That's pretty much the premise that is revealed in the back, and I'm not going to go too much into it just because I feel like that will take away from the actual story. And if you haven't read this book yet, then you really don't want to know anything else, because it's kind of one of those stories where the less you know, the better it'll be for you. So in general, for my first Stephen King, I will say that I quite enjoyed it. I definitely really enjoy Stephen King's writing. I think he writes with like a sense of urgency. I don't know if that really makes sense, but it's like he so urgently wants to tell you the story, and you can definitely like read it, like hear it in the way, like in his voice and in his like characterization. His characterization is really good. I really like his characters. His characters are all very like fleshed out and like have really have histories, and I know that some of the characters that are mentioned in this book, apparently they have like their own series or something, so that's definitely really interesting, and I love when authors do that. For me personally, even though this is my first Stephen King, I think there were some parts that I really enjoyed, including the like tension and the supernatural aspect, which I was not expecting at all. I don't know why. I think because the first half of this book read so much like a mystery thriller. I thought it was going to be a mystery thriller, like a mundane mystery thriller book that like I don't know, like the books that I've been reading, like Ruth Ware or whatever. But it does. But I guess I should have known that it would have like a supernatural horror monster aspect, because it is Stephen King, and Stephen King is known for that. But for me, the second part was really just too rushed. I feel like the first part, I mean, in contrast to the amount of time that King took to explain and build up the tension in the first part of the book, the second part was just so rushed, and I'm like, why is the first part just used for like so much storytelling and was really good, and then the second part was just like, here's the ending, here's what happens. So yeah, really interesting. Overall, I really enjoyed it. For spook factor, I think I'm gonna rate this more spooky than Mexican Gothic. I think I'm gonna rate it a 9 out of 10. I don't think I'm gonna give it a 10 out of 10. I do think though, throughout reading this book, what happens a lot when I'm scared is I start sweating. So I was definitely sweating a lot while reading this book. I mean, even now, I think today, after finishing all 3 of these books, I am like not okay. I will definitely not be sleeping in my bed alone tonight, that's for sure. And I think all these books combined, just like, I think I just did too much at once, definitely for sure. But this book especially is like so fucked up. There are some problematic things with it, like a little bit of fat phobia and other things. But other than that, that's not the scary part. The scary part is the supernatural part. And it, like, honestly, yeah, Stephen King's a master storyteller. The storytelling was like insanely good, but it was really creepy, I will have to say. I am not a horror buff, and I freaking hate scary movies, so this was just like reading a scary movie. and it was not fun. I would not like willingly do this to myself again, only for the sake of this video, but I'm never gonna pick up a Stephen King book again. That's like, I'm confident in my words in saying that. That being said, I think I came into this video wanting to explore the horror genre, and I think I did exactly that. I think with the breadth of the books that I chose, I think I chose a really good you know, range of books in the horror genre that really shed some light on the genre itself. I think the horror genre is definitely not what it was a decade ago or even 50 years ago, you know, when King was writing, or when, you know, Edgar Allan Poe was writing. And the horror genre has grown so much from what it is historically known as. I mean, yes, horror itself includes some type of scary factor, but I think now horror is used as like a metaphor or an allegory or a satire for larger issues. I mean, we see that in Mexican Gothic, and even with plain bad heroines, with like the queer, you know, the queer storytelling, and, you know, taking some historical aspects. So yeah, this was overall a great challenge. Yes, will I not be able to sleep for probably the next few nights and just be scarred for life? Yeah, probably. Will I ever pick up a horror book again? No, probably not, but I think I have a much better appreciation for the genre itself, and I will forever remember me being introduced to some of these books that taught me a lot more than just how to be scared. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap up the video there because I just need to cleanse myself of this video, and I need to have some time alone. Actually, no. Scratch that, not have time alone. But thank you so much for watching this video and for joining me on this journey of exploring new reads. I hope you like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.